first thing that new Montessori parents need to learn how to do that I think is so incredibly hard for all of us in this fast-paced world is to slow down and observe their child. And if you've been in the Montessori community for any amount of time, no doubt you have heard, this great piece of wisdom: observe, observe, observe. But there's still calls into question for new parents, like, what am I supposed to be observing?
That's right.
And how far do I need to take this observation? Do I need to put Maria Montessori, she was a doctor of education, right? And she was a physician, and so she literally put a chair in the middle of the classroom, sat down with a clipboard. And if you peek into Montessori classrooms today, you might see the same things. Now, teachers with current technology might have iPads, to take digital notes instead of a paper and pencil clipboard. I still prefer the paper and pencil myself. But it's the same thing. Like, do you need to sit there and for how long do you sit there? What are you looking for? And so I think often parents do observe and then kind of come up blank. Like, I watched and my kid played.
It occurs to me, there's this the old saying, one's mind shouldn't be so open that your brain falls out of your head, right?
I've heard you say this many times.
Yeah, so observe, yes, but at some point you have to stop. The simpler analogy that just came to mind is boiling water. You know how you're going to cook some spaghetti or something and you put a great big pot on the stove and you turn on the heat and nothing seems to happen and then suddenly it's boiling? You could let it continue to boil until all the water has steamed out, and you will have been certain at that point that you have observed boiling. But you don't have to go that far. The trick is you want to learn the point at which it's boiling just enough to be ready to use and not longer or shorter. That's something you can learn. You can 100% learn that not only with boiling water, but actually with children. You can learn to observe and look for signs of readiness with those children, with your children, and be able to know when it's time to go to the next stage, which is to present something of value to the child that speaks to that readiness moment.
Right. So what exactly to look for when observing?
Yeah.
So in our Montessori, Foundations of Montessori primary course, we actually teach exactly what to look at, and we're going to share it with you right here on the Power Hour.
We can't share all of it because it would be too long.
We're going to share with you.
We're going to share some examples.
Listen, I meant what I said. We're going to share not the whole course, but what to look for during observation.
You mean in this video?
Yes. Is that not clear?
I don't know. I get confused myself sometimes.
Okay.
I'm not very observant.
Okay. You stop interrupting me.
Sorry.
All right. Another Montessori dictum. Okay. So you're going to observe for repetition. This is one of the things we do teach in the primary course that is paramount. If your child is going back to the same work over and over and over, or the same toy over and over and over, or even repeating a motion over and over and over, this means something.
Yeah, sure.
So if your child's doing this behavior, then that's just going to be like a little light bulb to you. So that is the thing that you're observing, one of the things that you're observing for. Another thing is, what does your child seem joyful or excited about? And to a child, we talk about this in the primary course a lot as well. Oh, goodness. This chest cold is...
I know.
Oh, might have to go and cough in a minute. Okay. So the other thing is, if your child is concentrating on something, that Maria Montessori tells us is a sign of joy. Yes. So it's not just, is my child running around with this joyful look on their face, seeming so excited and clapping their hands. That also is obviously joy.
Yeah.
But another form of joy that we specifically look for during observation is the concentration.
Yeah, and I think that's an easy one to overlook because we're wanting to see this kind of vociferous expression of joy, the kind of, hey, oh, it's awesome, running around joyfully, and we don't remember that actually it's in the quietude that where you're seeing the deepest form of concentration. That's where you're seeing magic happen because their mind is just alive and they just want to focus it all in. So you're seeing repetition and you're seeing this kind of absorption. What else?
Excuse me. Another thing to look for that we talk about in the primary course is those moments where your child is skill building. And this is like the moment where your child is working on a toy, through a toy or on a task, and they just like can't do it. Maybe they get frustrated and give up. So those are 3 tried and true things to look for when you're observing your child.
Let's talk about that last one. I'm really curious a little bit more. So when I think about the signs of frustration, what I think about is that it often, or can, not always, but can be a sign that a child or a learner in general, your child specifically, is ready to move to the next level, but not quite there. They're really focusing in. How do you know when it's not, when it's okay to keep like pushing them versus you want to maybe give them a predecessor skill to work on when you're observing that?
I think like if your child is crying with frustration, you need to just put that thing away, you know, and distract them and give them something else to do, because if they're at that point where they're like all shook up, then there's no learning is going to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
But
That's great.
if your child is just like kind of frustrated and asking you for help, like, Daddy, do it, Mommy, do it, I can't do this, like that sort of thing, that shows you that they have the desire to do it, but not the skill yet. And so that's at the point where you think, what skills are needed to do this particular task that they don't have yet? And then you could, so it's kind of like it's almost like some people in Montessori say, like, we don't plan at all, like we just document, observe and document and teach. And that's sort of true. It is more important to observe and to be aware of your child's skills, but this is where we kind of do a little bit of reverse planning. So you've got to observe your child, see those little areas of frustration, and then think backwards. Like, okay, these are the skills that are involved in doing this particular task. How can I step it back into like micro skills and then teach those specific skills? And sometimes the micro skills that are actually needed to complete the task have to do with like hand strength or finger strength. In
So it
fact,
can be sometimes just like physical.
if your child
skill
is
that's
under
lacking.
the age of 6, especially, generally our lower elementary students have more hand and finger control. Not always, you know, brains are different, development is different, but generally lower elementary, you're kind of good to go with most physical task-oriented stuff. They'll be able to push through that. Under the age of 6, frustration with physicality is really, really, really common. So,
Yeah, and in fact, I think this is why you see the so-called terrible twos and so forth, right? Like, because you're seeing this mismatch of the desire with the physical capability. And that causes this real frustration. And we experience that too as adults, right? When we're trying to do something like, let's say, learn how to use a knife in the kitchen in a certain way, or play an instrument, or whatever, learning to parallel park, right? There are all kinds of things that can require physicality that we may not be ready. We may not have all the skills yet for it. It can get very, very frustrating, and we can experience that.
Think about just yes, exactly. Like if someone just like told me to go out to my car and diagnose what was wrong with it, and they said, "Oh, Aubrey, just like open up the hood and go look in the engine," I'd be like, "Where's the engine?" How do I open up the hood? And I'd probably just get frustrated on that one point, like opening the hood. I'd be like, I know there's a hook here somewhere, but like, where is it and how is it attached? And, you know, it's not one of my skills. And so I would actually need, you know, before I could even look inside under the hood of a car, I would need someone to teach me, like, how do I open the hood?
And that's good. That's a great example. And so, like, to come back to this, what are you doing in this first step with observation? You're looking for signs of repeated independence or independent repetition, the child going back again and again, you're seeing them get really absorbed and lingering on things. And you might be seeing signs of frustration where they are know that something is supposed to happen. Like they know that the hood of the car opens. If only they could remember. And that's where you as the parent can start to then bring in those additional things. So I like what you said before. Like there is a misconception that there's no like plan in Montessori. That is not the case at all.
Right.
There is a plan. There is a whole scope. It's like a road trip. You know where you're going to go. But in Montessori, what we're trying to do is say, we're going to let the events of the journey have weight. So maybe I can't make it all the way to Phoenix today in my car because I saw something beautiful or I had trouble or I had to leave later than I thought. And I'm not going to get freaked out about it. I'm just going to roll with it and know that I'm going to get to the destination. And it may not be on the schedule that I had planned.
Yeah.
So it may be on a different schedule. And then for the analogy here is like the child's schedule dictates. And that's where the observation helps. So let's look at our curriculum and talk kind of some specific examples for friends out there. Let's say in practical life, there's a lesson called Getting Dressed.
Oh,
okay. Okay. So what kinds of things might you be observing to know if the child is ready for this Getting Dressed lesson?
The specific getting dressed lesson? All right. Well, I mean, I guess if we're thinking of getting one's self dressed for the day perfectly, we're thinking like, are they confident with zipping? You know, if there's zippers in their closet, can they button something? Can they snap? Usually children's pants are like snapped. Maybe it's just like a pull up and that would be great, right? But a lot of pants are snap clothes and zipper clothes. Shirts would be like, do they have the coordination to find the holes in their arms and push them through without getting nervous when their heads are covered, right? I know, we've all seen that one. So if you were to say to your child, and just do this simple activity today, hey, why don't you go change clothes or let's get dressed? You want to try it yourself and just see what happens, you know? So can your child put on their socks? Where are they struggling? You know,
are they wearing their bathing suit and galoshes? Then might be okay unless you're going to mass or something. But it is a lesson, right? Actually, as you progress through getting dressed, picking your own clothes is a skill.
Can they pull that bathing suit all the way up, or can they do they know which galosh goes to which foot?
Yeah, that's
right.
True. So left, right.
We can still micro skill those.
But this is part of that getting dressed as you level up, right? You're going to go from more tactile things like being able to work a zipper to being able to select clothes that are appropriate for weather or occasion.